All right, welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to dive into something pretty wild. How you can take a legal claim, something like a court judgment or a promissory note, and turn it into actual spendable digital cash.
So here's the big question, right? How do you actually get the money out of a legal document like a promissory note without having to sell it off? Well, we are about to break down a system that's designed to do just that. We're going to follow an asset's journey from a piece of paper all the way to instant usable cash.
Okay, so our journey has 6 main parts. We'll start with the physical anchor, then move from paper to a digital ledger. After that, we'll see the fiduciary trigger, the minting of a digital twin, how that unlocks instant liquidity, and finally, we'll look at the proof that ties it all together. Let's get into it.
First up, the physical anchor. Where it all begins. And yeah, our journey doesn't start with fancy code or algorithms. It starts with something you can actually hold in your hand, a tangible, real-world asset that's the foundation for everything else.
So what we're talking about here are what's known as real-world assets, or RWAs. Think of things like a security agreement or a long note, the kind of stuff you'd back up with a UCC filing. But here's the absolute key. Before any of the digital magic can happen, that asset has to be legally perfected. That means the title, the security interest. It all has to be locked down tight. This is the bedrock, the foundation the whole system is built on.
And this is basically the map for our asset's journey. It's called the data translation pipeline. And its whole job is to take all that complicated legal paperwork, all the heretofores and whereases, and basically translate it into a language that a smart contract can actually understand and execute. It's all about moving from that initial paper document through this translation process and finally getting it ready for on-chain execution. Okay, next up, from paper to ledger. This is where we see the first big transformation, taking the story of that asset and turning it into clean, verifiable data.
Now, the core of this whole stage is something called the economic value record, or EVR for short. And honestly, the best way to picture it is like a super organized digital container. It takes all the messy, real-world details of a debt or a contract and neatly packages them into a standardized format that a machine can read and, more importantly, verify. It turns a story into ledger truth.
So think of the asset moving along this conveyor belt workflow. First, the data gets captured. Then its value is quantified using specific valuation models. After that, it runs through a bunch of automated checks. But then, and this is absolutely critical, it hits a dead stop at what's called the allowance gate. This is a hard stop. Nothing, and I mean nothing, moves forward until a real human fiduciary gives it the explicit thumbs up. That approval is what transforms it from just a claim into a legitimate, bookable receivable on the books.
And that really brings us to the main takeaway here. The EVR is amazing at creating an auditable, decision-grade record. It turns that messy narrative into something clean. But, and this is the key, it doesn't, on its own, create a recognized asset. That only happens when a human, a fiduciary, looks at the rules, looks at the record, and gives that final green light. That's the moment a story becomes a recognized receivable.
All right, so our asset is now officially on the books. It's a recognized receivable. So what's next? What's the trigger that actually unleashes all the financial power we've been talking about?
Well, that would be the fiduciary trigger. It's a core rule in the system, and it's actually pretty simple but incredibly powerful. Think of it like a switch. Once a specific financial threshold is met in the account, click, the entire system comes to life. All the tokenization, all the financial engineering tools, they're all unlocked.
And what is that magic number? It's $2,500. Yep, $2,500. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like a lot of money. But hitting that minimum balance, well, it has some absolutely massive consequences.
Because crossing that threshold does way more than just turn on some software features. The real significance is that it connects the account to a $100 million master insurance shield. That's huge. This isn't just a bonus. It provides the actual foundational security and collateral that makes the rest of this whole process even possible. It's the backstop.
Okay, the system is live, it's insured, so now it's time for the really cool part. Minting the digital twin. We're creating the asset's digital counterpart.
So how much liquid cash can you actually create? Well, it's not a guess. It's determined by a very specific and, frankly, conservative formula. It starts with the verified value of your asset. Then it applies what's called a haircut, which is basically just a safety buffer to account for risk, usually around 15 to 35%. After that, a minting ratio is applied, and that gives you the final amount of spendable tokens you can generate.
Now, what's really interesting is that this minting process doesn't just create one thing. It creates two different types of tokens. On the left, you have a unique NFT, an ERC-721. Think of this as the digital title deed to your specific claim. It's one of a kind, and it proves you own the underlying asset. Then on the right, you have the JFE coins, which are ERC-20 tokens. These are the fungible, spendable coins. So the NFT is the deed, and the coins are the liquid cash you can actually use.
And here's a massive security feature. No single person or entity can just decide to mint these tokens. The whole system is built on checks and balances. It actually requires a 2 out of 3 multi-signature approval. That means at least 2 of these 3 parties, the AFINET trustee, the CCG compliance team, and evaluation oracle, have to digitally sign off on it. It's a cryptographic failsafe to make sure everything is legit.
All right, we've got our tokens. Now for the part you've been waiting for. How does this digital value turn into a real-world payment? This is where it gets really wild. Let's talk about the gold bullet.
The secret sauce here is a mind-bending concept from the world of DeFi called an atomic flash loan. I mean, listen to this. It's an uncollateralized loan that is borrowed, used for its purpose, and paid back all within a single 12-second blockchain transaction. And the craziest part, if any step in that chain fails, the entire transaction is just erased. It's like it never even happened. No harm, no foul.
So here's how that gold bullet works in the real world. You swipe your card to make a payment. In the background, a flash loan instantly borrows the US dollars needed to pay the bill. The bank gets its money and the debt is satisfied. And then, in that same instant, the loan is completely repaid using the internal value of your tokenized asset. The whole thing happens in the blink of an eye, settling a real-world debt in about 12 seconds.
Okay, the payment is made, it's done. But in this digital world, where's the receipt? What's the final, unchangeable proof that this whole complex dance actually happened?
Well, once the transaction is finished, the system mints one last thing, a settlement mirror receipt. It's a special kind of token called a soul-bound token, or SBT, which just means it's non-transferable. It's bound to you. This is your permanent, tamper-proof, digital super receipt. From a legal standpoint, it serves as prima facie evidence, the final word that the payment was completed, and it even comes with a full audit pack.
And as we wrap up, it's important to see how this all holds together. This entire process, from start to finish, relies on the synergy between 3 distinct pillars. You have RSI for the notarization and legal framework. You've got CCG running the compliance engine, making sure all the rules are followed. And you have AFINET acting as the fiduciary, the custodian of the assets. Each one is crucial. Together, they make it all possible.
So, that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? When you can take a legal claim, something traditionally illiquid and locked up, and transform it into spendable cash through a process that is verifiable, insured, and automated, are we just looking at a cool piece of tech? Or are we witnessing a fundamental shift in how we define, manage, and use value itself?